The Victoria sponge is a good example of a cake. It's simple and understated, but delicious nonetheless, and ideal if you've never tried cake before. The Fanatec CSL Elite V2s are a good example of a pedal set. They're a bit generic, but they are a safe entry into the world of load cell brakes that can take you from beginner all the way through to advanced level sim racing. So let's take a look into the Victoria sponge of sim racing pedals for CSL Elite V2s. Before we get into it, a text-based version of this video is available on my site. The link is in the description along with other useful sites and shops. By using the Fanatec link in the description, you directly support my work and this channel at no added cost to you. And thanks to all who've remembered that and done so in the past, it's much appreciated. Your questions and experiences are welcome in the comments. First up, here's a quick roundup of the main points. Materials and build are better than the site photos would suggest. It looks fresh and grown up. The brake pedal is very much a typical example of a load cell brake, nothing unusual or quirky, just a tried and tested layout. The included tuning kit for the brake pedal is a big bonus, and it's super quick and easy to swap them out, making experimentation simple. The throttle is fairly light with no adjustment, so if you can't stand light throttle pedals, then bear this in mind. The clutch is also quite light with no bite point simulation, so if you're all about manual gearboxes and real world driving, then these won't be the ideal pedals for you. The €100 gap between these and the CSL pedals is clear to see. They do almost everything better and are well worth a difference. The €100 or so gap between these and the ClubSpot V3s is primarily in the clutch pedal. If you absolutely need a clutch pedal to feel like one, then the V3s would be the better option. Otherwise, the Elite V2s get all the jobs done. Overall, I consider these pedals to be a good, safe choice for you if you're stepping in or stepping up your sim racing gear. In mine and many others' eyes, these are the best value pedals out of the current Fanatec 3. The simple clutch is the only major deal breaker that may apply for some of you. These pedals are available in one variety only. 3 pedals, no optional accessories, this is it. Very simple and straightforward when buying, but also when explaining them to others. There's no, oh, did you get the damper kit or performance kit? Is the tuning kit worth it? None of that. They also arrive in a huge box, but at least they come 95% assembled and ready to go. They're constructed from cast aluminium with a powder coated finish that has a bristly graphite-like effect that I've never seen anywhere else. These are probably the stealthiest and understated looking pedals I've seen so far. The build seems stocky and reassuring, not too skinny in any one area. The pedal faces come with rubber shoes that are removable and refittable, which changes how sticky the pedals feel under your feet. The pedals are completely sock friendly, so whether you're driving with or without shoes, you should get along with it just fine. Mounting is done via through holes at the back and front, offering plenty of potential contact points with wide compatibility with any known brand cockpit. You can also reconfigure the pedals horizontally to a limited degree, although that's not a 5-minute job. In terms of ergonomics and scale, this is what I would describe as full adult sized. If you compare them to Logitech pedals, then you'll see what I mean by that. It's important to have a fair amount of reach and stroke, much like life with a dog. Point here is that this is not toy sized. The clutch and throttle are fairly simplistic to look at because all the business is done at the pivot point. That's where the springs and sensors are, so no spring coils or anything to look at, just the rubber backstops which very successfully dampen the noise of the pedals when you put them to the floor. This is a nice quiet pedal set. The brake features a typical load cell layout using a stack comprising of 1 preload spring and 3 rubber bushes, with the load cell sensor at the bottom of the whole assembly. This style of load cell is what I would describe as tried and tested, not reinventing the wheel or trying to be flashy. It's about as direct and simple as a load cell can be, and this is a good thing. There are so many pedals nowadays that aim to stand out by experimenting with the formula and doing something quirky. That's not the case here. The load cell is rated to 90 kg, that's plenty, and covers just about everyone's potential needs and should provide some headroom as well. I use shoes to sim race and I have the CSL Elite V2s set to 50% brake force, so I'd have bags more capacity to use if I wanted it. These V2s come with a tuning kit featuring a stiffer preload spring and 2 sets of bushings with different hardness to the pre-fitted set. The inclusion of this little kit had a big impact on my opinion of these pedals instantly. The cheaper CSL pedals have nothing like this included or even available to buy from official channels despite badly needing them. And the more expensive Club Sport V3 pedals do have a brake tuning kit available, but it costs you €20 extra. This V2 pedal set is right on the bullseye, providing a brake tuning kit as standard but is also very simple to change. This is something that many brands, including Fanatec, would usually sell separately for additional cost. Including them in the price makes a pedal set immediately more recommendable, allow people to customize to taste without feeling like they're being taken for a few extra quid. It takes a mere minute to swap the springs and bushing around, it's incredibly easy. Up until this point, my impression of the pedals has been one of simplistic, straightforward design, but how do they drive? You'll be spending a lot more time stomping on them than looking at them, so this is the important bit. The throttle pedal I feel is a little bit on the light side, at least for me personally, but as there are no adjustment options for that, I have to adjust myself, and to be fair, I do get over it pretty quickly. It is however nice and smooth with that rubber backstop firmly cushioning the noise and feel at the end. It may be a little lightly sprung, but it doesn't feel hollow or harsh. The clutch pedal is much the same but with a slightly stronger spring load, however it is too light to be even close to realistic, with no attempt to replicate a bite point in the middle either, so in this regard this is a very basic clutch pedal. It would need to be at least double to triple the resistance to resemble anything like a realistic clutch pressure. For this reason, if a good clutch pedal is an absolute must for you, you won't find it here, and that could be a deal breaker. The brake pedal is where the focus lies. For the purposes of sim racing, this is always the most important asset of a pedal set, and I judge the quality of a brake pedal by the amount of time it takes to mentally calibrate myself to it. That is something made quicker and easier when a brake is well constructed and well set up from factory. In that respect, it took next to no time to feel right at home with it. This is just a very good representation of a typical load cell brake, and the full size proportions of a pedal set itself means it feels far from a toy. A brake tuner manual is provided to give you some indication of what you're looking at and how to go about swapping the spring and bush elements. It's thankfully very simple to do. After some testing, I've settled on the blue spring with the 85 hardness bushings, which gives me a bit of a preload squish followed by a firm stack underneath for the holding pressure. Even with the tuning kit though, you won't be able to customize or fine tune the character of a brake all that much besides overall stiffness. If I could have my way, I would love to have a bit more preload stage so the pedal travels further before engaging a hard main stage. But that's because that's how my load cell brake idealism has been developed over the years, and I have a strong idea of what I like. If you're just now exploring load cell brakes, getting used to them, honing your senses, knowing that what you're using is well representative of a load cell brake is all you need to worry about. And in that respect, it's not really possible to put the CSL Elite V2s in a configuration outside of that broad middle ground. That's what makes these pedals pretty good for you if you're anywhere from beginner to early advanced. You can tweak them, but you can't accidentally put them into the gutter. The lane barriers are up. Overall, the driving feel of these pedals is familiar or safe. I had no issues absorbing myself into the car and getting into my groove, and it's easy to dial in a good foot feel on the brake. I'm not comparing myself to Usain Bolt, but if you give him a pair of running shoes and he says they work fine, then you know you're okay to start your training in them. As they are the middle child in a family of three, it's worthwhile going over some basic comparisons between these, the cheaper CSL pedals, and the more expensive Club Sport V3s. You can adjust the horizontal position of the pedals on the CSLs and Elites, not on the Club Sports, not without third-party mods anyway. You can't adjust the pedal faces at all on the Elites besides taking the rubbers off and on them, whereas you can on the Club Sports and also on the CSLs to a minor degree. I don't expect this to be a problem for many people at all because they are well proportioned and pretty universally appealing. You can't adjust for throttle or clutch stiffness on the Elites or CSLs, whereas you can on the Club Sports with their included optional springs. The Club Sports come with pedal vibration motors, the CSLs and Elites don't. They're an unusual thing to have anyway, but the Club Sports nonetheless do have them, even if they're only small. The clutch pedal on the Club Sports is vastly superior to the Elites and CSLs, so if you are an enjoyer of things with manual gearboxes, then this is a very important distinction and a potential deal breaker. As mentioned throughout, a brake tuning kit is included in the cost of the Elites, but come as an added cost for the Club Sports, and none are available for the CSLs unless you turn to third-party mods. Now if you look at this table, there doesn't seem to be much difference between the CSLs and the CSL Elites, so why pay that much more? In truth, the CSLs feel like the CSL Elites, but with all the comfort taken away. By this, I mean the CSLs feel quite cold and harsh to use compared to the Elites. They're louder, worse to look at, and the lack of a brake tuning kit means you just have to deal with what you're given in terms of brake stiffness. And a lot of people report the CSL load cell is just too stiff, and I completely agree. If the Elites are within your budget, then the extra €100 to get them is well worthwhile in my opinion. When I judge sim racing gear that occupies the lower to mid level, one of my top considerations is to ask myself, if this was the first piece of kit you came into contact with, would it give you a good impression of sim racing as a whole, and would it be a good partner for you as you progress from interested to obsessed? These are a good ambassador. They're simple, look great, built well and perform perfectly well under my feet, so I would be comfortable recommending them for those either picking their first setup and wanting to come in strong, or to those looking to step up to something mid-level with a solid load cell brake and of better proportions. It's a shame it doesn't have a convincing clutch. It's the only real weakness and the only thing that gives away that CSL Elite name. These pedals should look after you for a long time and give you a comfortable, standard experience. That's not the most exciting way to describe anything, but it's the truth and they don't seem to mind at all. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, then subscribe for more and check out my channel for more like this. Remember that using the links in the description supports my work. If any take your fancy, then your click will go a long way. Feel free to ask anything in the comments or share your own opinions of the Elites. Cheers again.